This story is brought to you by the month of Lurve.
The month of Lurve.
Part 3. The party project, as Pinkie Pie proudly proclaimed the ponies, met at Balloon's Cafe, this time without the charts or projectors that had failed so spectacularly during the previous meeting. Rarity paced the floor of the kitchen as the ponies waited for her to speak. "I'm sorry to drag you all away from your jobs in the middle of the day like this," said Rarity. "But if the message we got from the Chamber of Commerce is correct, any business that caters to Lyra and Bonbon's wedding is going to be boycotted by the nobility. I truly want them to be happy, but I cater a great deal to nobles, and I can't afford to have that happen. I can't sell them their dresses at any price." Pokey pounded a hoof to the counter.
The nobles can suck my left...
He paused a moment to consider the company.
Hoof. If they think for 1 second that I'm going to let a bunch of stuck-up blue bloods tell me how to run my business, they've got another thing coming.
"Bonbon isn't going to let any of us risk our flanks for her," said Carrot Top. "This is bigger than just those two now," said Berry Punch. "We're not living in the Dark Ages. The common ponies have more money than the nobles. Why do they think they're better than us?"
"They just don't want things to change," said Pokey. "It used to be that the nobles reigned over ponies with impunity. Now that the nobility is irrelevant, they're clinging to power every way they can. For some reason, that means harassing Lyra and Bonbon."
"What's with that, anyway?" asked Carrot Top. "There's gotta be a way that we can help them," said Pinkie. "If the ponies are going to be all mean to ponies that help Lyra and Bonbon, then we have to find some business they can't hurt." "They probably couldn't affect me, but I'm in wholesale," said Carrot Top. "I mean, I don't sell directly to the nobility, but if they start boycotting Ponyville's farms, that could spell trouble for everyone. You don't own Sugar Cube Corner, Pinkie, so you can't do anything to help either."
"I'll do it," said Pokey.
"No, you won't," said Rarity. "We can't let any one of our businesses fail just because we're feeling selfless. We need another idea." "We could buy everything off of the nobles."
"Like they'll sell anything to us."
"How about we throw them a party of their own?"
"What would that accomplish?"
"Let's just have a drink."
"That's your solution to everything."
"You shut your mouth."
"You want to take this outside, Fluffy?"
"You calling me fat?"
"I'm calling your hair stupid."
Just as the two were ready to throw down, Pinkie Pie interrupted the fight with an air horn. The restaurant turned to stare into the kitchen at Pinkie. "All this fighting is getting us nowhere," said Pinkie. "This is going to be the biggest party in Ponyville history. Big parties require big thinking."
"Fine," grumbled Pokey. "Let's see your pink flank come up with something."
"We need a business that isn't going to be bothered by nobles not using it, right?" Pinkie asked. The ponies all nodded in agreement, trying to follow the logic train that Pinkie was pulling. "Then we start a new business." Carrot Top put a hoof to her forehead with a groan. "Why did it take Pinkie to think of that?" she asked. "Because outside the box is where Pinkie spends most of her time," said Rarity. "Still, I wouldn't have expected such an elegant solution from her." "Well, duh," said Pinkie. "I mean, it's not like any pony else was coming up with anything." "There's still the problem of the preacher," said Carrot Top. "Ponyville only has one, and he's somewhere in Bridalburg for the next few weeks." "Then one of us should become one," said Pinkie. The ponies exchanged confused glances for a moment as the idea sunk in.
"That's brilliant," said Pokey. "Why didn't we think of this before? Now we just need some pony who has nothing to do for the next couple weeks, and..."
The pop of an opening cork demanded their attention, and every eye in the room turned to Berry Punch. "What?" she asked. "School's out for the summer, right?" asked Carrot Top. "Oh, crap." It was about a week later when Pinkie Pie dragged Pokey out of his apartment in the middle of the night. Once they arrived at the edge of town, Pokey stared, blinking at all the nightmarish structures that stood before him. It was the sort of structure that one read stories about in the paper. Things like illegal sugar lab found in basement of abandoned dance hall.
"You paid how much for this?" asked Pokey.
"Nothing," said Pinkie. "I found it."
Pokey put a hoof to his head and tried to process what Pinkie Pie had just told him. She found a building on the edge of the city, managed to acquire the deed for it, and secure a business license all in the span of a day. As the night sky illuminated the rickety framework, Pokey stared in through the gaping holes, wondering just how Pinkie had done it. Sure, it was run down. Sure, it was covered with graffiti that looked suspiciously like the Cutie Mark Crusaders' capes. Sure, there was a massive hole in the wall. Despite all of that, the building was now the future site of Hearts and Hooves' wedding chapel. "I find it a little hard to believe that you found a building," said Pokey. "If I knew the truth, would it drive me mad?"
"Why would you be mad about a free building?" asked Pinkie. "Applejack and Rainbow Dash said they'd help fix it up tomorrow afternoon, so we'll have the wedding here. Berry Punch marries them, you bring the food, Rarity makes the dresses, and I'll bring the cake. It's foolproof. No pony can stop us."
Pokey nodded in agreement. Everything the nobles had done to get in their way had fallen into Pinkie's ingenious circumventions. Berry Punch was a few days away from her clergy license. They had a building to hold the wedding in, and business to sell everything from the dresses to the catering. When the nobles tried to boycott it or shut it down, they'd find that it had already folded. Lyra and Bonbon would be happily married by then, and there would be nothing any pony could do about it. They walked into the building and were greeted by the massive hole in the wall. Because of its size and shape, it was perfect for a stained glass window. Pokey imagined putting in something classy like stained glass heart or Celestia raising the sun.
"All right, then," said Pinkie. "Fluttershy should be here any minute to help."
"Pinkie, you know we can't go telling other ponies about this sort of thing," said Pokey. "I still haven't figured out who's feeding the nobles information. What do we need Fluttershy for?"
"She's going to take care of the raccoons, silly."
"What raccoon?" Pokey thought himself a brave pony. A lifetime of adventures had steeled his nerves against the horrors of the world, but when a dozen sets of glowing eyes attached to a hissing mass of fur came into view, it made him scream like a filly. Pokey galloped into the night, chased by a carpet of angry raccoons. Pinkie Pie stood in the guttered remains of the building. Her smile was enough to light up the building as Pokey ran past the door again, this time covered in a mass of biting animals.
"This is gonna be great," she said.
After the kitchen disaster a few weeks ago, Bonbon called in a local maintenance pony to repair her equipment rather than sending out to Canterlot for a specialist. With the possibility of future sabotage, she had decided to seek out local sources for everything rather than try to order by mail or have Lyra bring home from Canterlot anything she needed. Bonbon sighed as she fed chocolates into the wrapping machine. Lyra, Lyra, Lyra. Perhaps she kept running across her mind because they hadn't seen each other in 3 days. She said something about her hooves hurting from all the walking and that she was going to stay with her parents until the weekend. Maybe it was good for them to spend a few days apart. Absence always makes the heart grow fonder, after all. Still, with the wedding only 2 days away, everything had reached a fevered pitch. Letters poured in from the nobles offering them huge sums of cash to just forget the whole thing. Business owners, save for Pinkie's marauding band of party planners, shunned the mayors simply for fear of what the nobles would do for even associating with them. Still, it hadn't affected business much. Ponies still loved their sweets, and Bonbon's Bonbons was the best in town. The ringing shop bell summoned Bonbon from her kitchen. She emerged to greet 2 dapper young stallions she'd never seen before. One was brown and the other gray. They didn't look like the candy type, but she put on her best smile anyway.
"Welcome to Bonbon's Bonbons," she said. "I'm Bonbon, and these are my bonbons. Welcome to Ponyville. Help yourself to a sample of candy."
She continued to smile as the 2 ponies lumbered around the store, bumping into things and sending her displays teetering. Bonbon cringed through her smile as the gray stallion finally approached the counter. The way his eyes lingered on her flanks and hips set her on edge, and judging by the way he pulled his hooves to the counter, she could tell he wasn't here for candy. "You Bonbon?" he asked.
"That's me,"
said Bonbon. She pushed a jar of her cinnamon ginger fireballs towards him.
"Candy?"
The stallion knocked the jar of candy off the counter with a swat of his hoof. It tumbled and shattered against the counter, spraying the fiery sweets across the store. The other stallion moved past the counter and shoved Bonbon against the wall. "You stay away from Lyra, you hear me? You set a hoof in your friend's chapel and it'll be the last thing you ever do."
Instead of cowering like a filly like they had expected, she swept a hoofful of candies off the counter and shoved them into the brown stallion's mouth. As he choked and sputtered on the spicy sweets, Bonbon snatched up a copper pot from the wall and clocked the gray stallion upside the head. The pony skittered towards the door, a tangle of legs, trying to avoid Bonbon's swinging pot as she chased them out of the store. "And if I ever see you again, it'll be the last thing you ever do!" she screamed. The ponies on the street stared at Bonbon for a moment before she walked back inside. Bonbon simply tossed her copper pot back on the counter before sweeping up the display the hoodlums had wrecked. "It's the last straw," said Bonbon. "I'm just gonna put an end to this nonsense once and for all." Barry sat slumped over the counter when the clatter of the shop bell woke her wine-addled brain from its nap. She blinked a few times, trying to remember where she was or what she was doing there. 2 ponies, a green Pegasus mare and a white Earth Pony stallion, stood in front of the counter with the sort of smiles that Barry Punch had almost forgotten were ever possible. She hiccuped and blinked again. "Can I help you?" she asked. "We'd like to get married," said the stallion. Barry Punch squinted at the couple, trying to make sure these ponies weren't hallucinations. They stood there, still beaming, still real. Barry reached under the counter and pulled out a scroll. "Well, that's fantastic," said Barry with a smile. "What were you looking for? Traditional ceremony, new age hippie wedding, married in a hurry, shotgun special?" "What's a shotgun?" asked the mare. Barry Punch put a hoof to her chin, pondering the question. "No idea," she said. "Are you pregnant?" The mare's eyes darted around the room. No, she said. "Why would you think that? Oh goodness, am I showing already?" "Then that one's not for you," said Barry, stamping the scroll. "How about the married in a hurried package deal? All the paperwork, a ceremony, and a bottle of champagne. Only 25 bits. The stallion dropped a pouch full of coins onto the counter. She swept the coins into the register and passed him the scroll. "Fill this out, then we'll do the ceremony. There's a quill right here. Do you want to rent a wedding dress or a tux?" "No, thanks," said the mare. "How long is this going to take?" "About 10 minutes once you get the paperwork filled out," said Barry. "And that won't even take that long. Just walk up the aisle when you're ready. I'll meet you at the altar." As she wandered away from the counter into the chapel beyond, she paused to marvel at just how beautiful the place really was. Up until a week ago, it didn't exist. Besides the courthouse or the park, there was no real place for ponies to get married in Ponyville. With the mayor tied up in legal nonsense for weeks on end, and the one preacher that lived in Ponyville tied up in Bridalburg, there wasn't a single pony able to marry ponies in the village. Now, with her shiny new clergy certification, Barry Punch stood as the only available purveyor of weddings in Ponyville. The sun poured in through the stained glass window, casting a perfect red heart on the 2 ponies that walked up the aisle to meet Barry. Barry looked down at the 2 and smiled. Maybe it was just the wine, but she found herself fondly recalling her own wedding day all those years ago. She cleared her throat and began to read the scroll the ponies had filled out. "Let's see," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Your writing is terrible." She looked over her glasses at the couple. "Alright, looks like you're Sandpaper, and you're Cherry Clouds. Are you taking each other's names?" "Can we do that?" asked the mayor. "Can I be Cherry Paper?" "Or he could be Sand Clouds," said Barry Punch. "Really, it doesn't matter to me. I'll just stamp your papers after we're done." Sandpaper glanced over his shoulder with a nervous twitch. "Can we get going?" "Oh, right," said Barry. "Dearly beloved, we are here today, gathered in the sight of our goddesses Celestia and Luna to witness the sacrament of marriage between these 2 ponies. If anyone should object to this union—" "I object!" yelled a voice from the back of the chapel. They looked up to see a white Earth pony charging up the aisle. "Oh crap," said Barry. She flipped through the book in a panic before slamming it shut. "Looks like you get the super short version. Sandpaper, do you?" Yes," he sputtered. "Cherry Cloud, do you?" "Yes." "Kiss, then!" Cherry Cloud threw herself at Sandpaper in a passionate kiss that left Barry speechless. The charging pony tripped on a bit of carpeting and rolled to a stop in front of the altar. Barry Punch looked down at him and shrugged. "Too late, Pops," she said, picking up the champagne bottle from the altar. By the power vested in me by the land of Equestria, I declare you two crazy kids married. She popped open the bottle with her teeth. Mazel tov!
I'll have your license! Shrieked the intruding pony. He tried to drag the Pegasus mare off his son. Get off of him, you hussy!
That's Mrs. Hussy to you, said Cherry Cloud. Despite the protests, threats, and other unkind words hurled in Barry's direction, Sandpaper and Cherry Cloud were legally married now in the eyes of Equestria. Barry wished them a happy life together and sat consoling Sand's father with a drink. You gotta be happy for your kid, Tack, said Barry, taking a swig. She passed the bottle to Tack. They gotta grow up sometime, and he's just doing right by the filly.
I suppose you're right, said Tack, taking a drink of his own. I mean, who am I to stop true love? That'd make me as bad as those thugs who were wandering around Ponyville trying to scare people.
Barry's ears perked up. What do you mean?
You didn't hear? Asked Tack. There's a couple of ponies that came into town this morning and started harassing ponies that were helping Lyra and Bonbon.
How would they even know who was helping them? Asked Barry.
Who knows? Sighed Tack. Thanks for talking me down, Barry. You're doing good work here.
With that, Tack stood and left the chapel, passing two stallions standing in the doorway. The pair of stallions looked around a moment, confused at the accommodations provided by Hearts and Hooves' wedding chapel. Barry stood from where she was sitting and walked towards the counter with half a smile. Welcome to Hearts and Hooves' wedding chapel, said Barry. You two look like you want to get married.
What?
Asked the brown stallion. He was still well dressed, though his face was smeared with what looked like red candy. Married, said Barry. Greatest thing you could ever do. It's so rare to see two stallions together. I'm so happy you found each other.
Wait, what?
Asked the gray stallion. He rubbed the knot on his head, trying to understand Barry. Aw, don't be shy, said Barry, pushing a scroll at them. Just fill this out and we'll have you two lovebirds on your way. I'm in the marrying mood, so just 10 bits for the service.
We're not
perfect for each other? Asked Barry, taking back the scroll. Oh, that's okay, neither was my husband and I. But that's okay, things don't always have to be perfect. She looked down at the scroll. Don't know how to write, eh? No problem, what's your names?
Barbell,
said the gray pony.
And he's Plow, but...
With a W or O-U-G-H? Asked Barry, scribbling on the scroll. W, right? Perfect. Now, raise your right hoof. The ponies looked to each other and both raised their left hooves. Close enough. Do you, Barbell?
Do I what?
Asked the gray pony. Barry leaned in.
You're supposed to say yes,
she whispered.
I guess?
Asked Barbell. And do you, Plow?
Sure,
he said, looking around the chapel. Then by the power vested in me by Equestria, I declare you two kids married. She stamped the paper with a loud thump and passed it to the two ponies. Congratulations!
Wait, what just happened?
Asked Plow. You're married, said Barry Punch. Happiest day of your life, or at least it should be. There's a lovely bed and breakfast down the road if you want a nice quiet spot to celebrate. Barry Punch eyed them with a wistful sigh. It's always the pretty ones that like colts. Figures. The two stallions walked in a daze from the chapel, still unsure as to what exactly had happened. Plow looked at the scroll, then back to Barbell.
Dude, I think we just got married. No way, Colt, said Barbell. I'm not gay.
He coughed and looked around a moment.
I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that.
Totally, said Plow. Me neither. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with being gay. The two stallions looked at each other for a moment. As the sun passed overhead, Plow saw a look he never hoped to find in those deep brown eyes. Barbell had seen it too, and a moment later the two ponies were locked in a passionate kiss that sent them tumbling down the stairs of the chapel. It was strange walking through the streets of Ponyville these days for Bonbon. Ponies stopped and whispered to one another about her when she passed, while others just shook their heads. She had gotten more business from ponies wandering in to ask her when she was due than she cared to admit, and more than once a pony came in to offer their advice on what to do with her cheating mare friend. She instead consoled herself from the rumors by snacking on her wares. She had put on a few extra pounds from all the stress and candy, which probably didn't help matters all that much. Bonbon arrived at her cottage to find Lyra sleeping on the couch in her usual way, on her rump, head hanging off the back cushion, snoring along to the radio. She couldn't help but smile at her unicorn. Even with her strange ways of sitting and her bizarre hobbies, she was still the most beautiful mare in the world. Bonbon kissed Lyra's head. Lyra's yellow eyes fluttered open, smiling with soft warmth. "Well, hello, beautiful," said Lyra. "Shouldn't you be at your candy shop?" "We need to talk," said Bonbon. Lyra turned right side up to face Bonbon. "I have a better idea," said Lyra. "Why don't we have some lunch, then go upstairs and fold laundry?" "We don't have laundry," said Bonbon. Lyra only grinned. "Oh, we'll see, but lunch sounds like a great idea." Bonbon disappeared into the kitchen, and Lyra closed her eyes again. She hadn't gotten much sleep with all her recent travel. For whatever reason, she could never sleep on trains, and the walk to and from Canterlot at least twice a week was starting to wear on her hooves. The time away from Bonbon was getting to her, but it was all for a good cause. The smell of French toast wafted from the kitchen, snapping Lyra's eyes wide awake. French toast. Her favorite food. It wasn't hard for a kitchen goddess like Bonbon to make, but for whatever reason she only made it when they had a fight. It was her way of apologizing to Lyra, but they hadn't fought in months. Granted, they hadn't spent much time together recently. Lyra trotted into the kitchen to investigate. A single fresh rose adorned the vase next to the heaping stacks of French toast and cups of tea. Bonbon stood at the table, apron still tied around her waist. She motioned for Lyra to join her. "What's the occasion?" asked Lyra. "Oh, nothing," said Bonbon. "I just know how much you like French toast, and we had some bread that I left out, and—" Her voice trailed off as she stared at the floor. Lyra pushed aside the plate. "What's wrong?" asked Lyra. I... Are we out of money again?" asked Lyra. "I can get my parents to give me a loan. They know what's going on. They know we're good for it." "That's not it," said Bonbon. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes as if to force herself to speak. "I don't think we should get married right now. With the nobility so up in arms over the whole thing, and money the way it is—" Lyra slammed a hoof down on the kitchen table. Bonbon flinched backward in fear. "No!" "But—" Bonbon protested. "No buts!" yelled Lyra. "I thought we were going to spend our life together, through thick and thin, for richer or poorer, in sickness and in health." "We haven't made those I realize we haven't made our vows yet," snapped Lyra. "But that's what they are. Are you saying that's not what you want now? Are you saying you don't want to spend the rest of your life with me?" "That's not it at all," said Bonbon. "It's just that we don't have the money. If my parents hadn't loaned us those bits, we'd be down on the street right now." Lyra grabbed a basket full of chocolate invitations off the counter and dumped it on the table. The candy hearts knocked over the vase and spilled a cup of tea Bonbon had set out. "Did you forget about these?" asked Lyra. "We gave these out to our friends, our families. You made these because you wanted to get married on the day we met. This wedding is happening here, in Ponyville, on the date that we put on our invitations. I don't care if Celestia herself comes down from Canterlot and tells us not to get married. This is happening, and no third-rate duke is going to tell us otherwise." "Lyra, you're starting to scare me," said Bonbon as she backed away from the table. "I've never seen you this angry before." "And why shouldn't I be angry?" demanded Lyra. "I've been working every day I could, trying to get us money for this wedding. It's not just the performances that have been keeping me in Canterlot, Bonbon." She picked up a Lyra case and dumped the contents onto the table. Golden bits, silver bits, gems, all other manners of small currency rolled across the table among the candy. Bonbon looked at the pile of money, then back to Lyra. Her mouth hung open in shock. "You lied to me," said Bonbon. "What?" asked Lyra. "No, I told you I was working. I've been playing on street corners and doing odd jobs for—" "You lied to me!" "I didn't lie to you!" Lyra shouted. "I would never lie to you. I was working. I've been working my tail off for months for our wedding, for your candy shop, for us." Lyra slammed the empty case to the floor. "All I wanted was for us to be happy," screamed Lyra. "I wanted a fairy tale wedding for the mayor I love, and I can't even have that because some inbred ass thinks I should marry my cousin." "You didn't have to—" "But I did!" Lyra yelled. "I did it for you. Everything for you. I've worked so hard to make things easy for you because you deserve it. You deserve everything." Lyra stomped away from the table, tears streaming from her eyes. "And I can't even give you the day you've always wanted." Lyra's glowing horn snatched up her Lear case as she walked to the door. "Where are you going?" asked Bonbon. "The wedding is off," sobbed Lyra. "I'm sick of fighting every pony and their brother. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to go try to act like a noble, since that's what every pony expects of me." The slamming door rattled Bonbon's cottage to its foundation, knocking a framed picture off the wall. It shattered across the wooden floor and split in two. Bonbon looked down at it. It was a copy of the picture hanging in the restaurant with Lyra down on one knee. The shattered frame had torn apart the picture. What just happened? Was the wedding really off? Bonbon slumped to the floor as she tried to press the photograph back together. She could barely see the pieces through all the tears in her eyes. In that instant, everything became real. Lyra had left her. To be continued.